Welcome to the Catalyst Sale Podcast with Mike and Mike. Sales is a thinking process. This podcast will help you learn about what works in sales, how to hone your skills, and increase your success. I'm your host, Jody Mayberry, and I have Mike Simmons with me today. Mike, I have a listener question all the way from Iowa.
Awesome. Thanks, Jody.
This question comes from Spencer, who I mentioned is in Iowa, and he is interested in something that is just near and dear to me, Mike. So this is going to be a good topic. Spencer says, can you talk about the importance of having a mentor as a new sales rep or as a seasoned rep in a new company? So let's have that conversation, Mike. How important is it to have a mentor?
It's critical. I mean, one of the things we've talked about, I think on podcasts previously, is don't fail alone. You may be new into an organization. You may even have been inside the organization for a number of years, but you're new into a given role. Look for people who've walked that path before. Look to them for guidance. Look to them for recommendations. Look to them for support. And I know these things take time. So, asking someone to take time out of their day so that they can maybe have coffee with you and discuss what works and what doesn't work, or meet over lunch and discuss what works or doesn't work, or even in remote instances, meeting over lunch and discussing what works or doesn't work. As a new employee inside an organization, it's critical to work with others who have walked the path previously. We've talked about historically with the concept of never fail alone. So work with your sales leadership as you go through opportunities. It's great to be successful. It's great to take on the recognition for closing a large deal, but you've got to remember there's a huge team of people usually behind you who help with that. And when it comes to being a new employee inside an organization, or it comes to being a person who's been inside the organization for a number of years but has moved into a role, lean on your network for support.
I was lucky enough when I started my park ranger career, the park manager just took me under his wing. I didn't have any experience as a ranger. I had been a financial analyst. So having a mentor going in a completely new field made all the difference to me. He would take me out to lunch. He'd answer all my questions. He'd drive me through the park, walk me on trails, talk about different stuff. And it worked really well. But here's what I'm thinking, though, is that salespeople get paid by selling. So if somebody took the time to walk with a new recruit, a new sales rep, or even a seasoned rep that's new to the company, if someone took the time to do that, like Jack Hart did to me, that's time that they're not selling. So how do you balance that?
Awesome question. And I'm gonna go back before I answer that question. I'm gonna go back to this experience that you have as a park ranger experience in the financial space moving into a role as a park ranger. There is probably some experience, whether it's the thing that compelled you to become a park ranger, or it's that thing that inspired you to do it, or it maybe was just the process of research or navigating information that you can deliver back to your mentor. So now the mentee takes on a bit of a mentorship role where you're sharing life experience with this person that could ultimately help them in their business. Remember, as you look at things through your own lens, you've only got your perspective. As you start to explore other people's lenses or other people's perspective or other people's experience, you broaden that viewpoint of the world. So you end up getting, as a mentor, getting as much value and sometimes more value by being able to learn from the mentee's experience. Now, as far as the timing goes, we're compensated based, most people in a sales role are compensated based on the revenue that they generate inside an organization. But I think if you go back through and you look at what you do on a day in, day out basis, unless you're actively working for the 12 hours or 16 hours that you're awake and you don't have any time to break away to drink a cup of coffee or eat some lunch or do some research, I think you can find time to give back into the organization. And as a mentor, you should look at this as your opportunity to give back inside the organization. On the mentee side, what I would do is I would look for common things that you and that mentor might do. So let's say you're both in the same office hypothetically speaking, you probably eat lunch or you eat breakfast or you go and you grab coffee. So find those opportunities where you can do those things together. Maybe it's the 15 minutes over a cup of coffee and just sharing some experience structure. Maybe it's that time over lunch. Maybe it's the time at the end of the day where you decide to hang out at the office a little bit later so that you can avoid sitting in traffic. But I think with most things with time management, you can find the time to give back. And if you're a mentee looking for a mentor, I would look for those who are interested in giving back and are happy to help.
Now, I'm going to take the viewpoint of maybe a supervisor or somebody high up here in a company that says, look, Mike, we have well-documented processes and procedures. We've gone through great lengths to put these in place for when we have new people. How come that won't work in the place of a mentor?
Well, I think of all of the documents that I'll read through that talk about all the process. Actually, we were out meeting with an organization just a couple of weeks ago, and they've got a 17,000 page document that they refer to in their business. And there are people inside the organization who can recite specific pages of that document, but for someone to be able to go through and recite the 17,000 pages would be really difficult. For someone to even remember all of the content inside that 17,000 page document would be really difficult. It's great to think that people can reference information, but when you're referencing information, all you're doing is consuming what someone has, documented, what they've put pen to paper on. That document doesn't give you a chance to interact. It doesn't give you a chance to engage. It doesn't give you a chance to get personal experience. I could read a statement and perceive it in one way. And if I don't have the opportunity to talk with someone about it, I may find out way down the road that I perceived it differently. And when trying to think of a specific example, but let's say that I call a chair, and inside the document, they call it a stool, and someone uses stool in the context of other ways stool could be used. So you're in a doctor's office and you do a stool sample. That's a little bit different than the stool that you might sit on.
That went a place I didn't expect.
Well, that's what happens when the other mic doesn't join.
Yes, I guess so. Well, you have acknowledged we don't have Mike Connor with us again today. So he will be back.
He will be back.
Well, let me ask this then about mentors. If within an organization, is it important? Does it work best to have a formal mentorship program, or does it work better informally?
Another great question. And I would respond by saying it depends. It depends on the culture of the organization. It depends on the type of employees you're bringing into the organization. It depends on what level they're coming into the organization. It also depends on personality type. I tend to be a bit more introverted. I may not go into a room and walk up to someone and ask them for their perspective on some idea or some concept if I didn't have some context previously. So you think about new employees that you bring into the organization who maybe don't feel comfortable reaching out to someone or identifying that buddy that they should work with, or that buddy that they should job shadow. You should have a program in place that helps support that type of person inside your organization because they exist. You've got some people who are going to be really outgoing and really extroverted and are not afraid to raise their hand and ask a lot of questions. They may not need the same kind of formal structure or formal partnering. They may be okay and they may thrive in an informal environment. So I think you've got to look at your organization and you've got to say, this is who we are. These are the type of people that we have inside our organization. And if we need to have more process to support it, great. But process should not impede this thing from being successful. So process for the sake of process is not a good thing. Process to help drive a behavior that you're looking for inside the organization can be a very good thing.
Now, I believe it was Jack Welch who said that formal mentorship programs don't always work because people are mentoring because they have to, not because they take an active interest in the person they're mentoring. What do you think about that?
Again, another great point and important thing to consider. I think you've got to look at inside your organization who are the people who want to be mentors. Who are the people who are really interested in giving back to the organization? They have this passion about coaching and sharing and helping. But now beyond that passion about coaching and sharing and helping, you've got to make sure they're the right person. So they may be passionate about coaching, sharing, and helping. They just may not have the technical skills or capability or experience to be able to do so. So I think in any organization, you've got to evaluate your team, identify those people where this is a good role for them, and then partner them up with the right folks inside the organization. Become a catalyst to help support the creation of that relationship. If you're forced into doing something and it's not something that you're interested in doing, are you really going to be able to, are you going to provide 100%? Are you going to be completely committed to the relationship? If you're not completely committed to the relationship as a mentor, you're going to have a hard time conveying that message over to a mentee, and they're going to see through it. They're going to get to the point where they say, all right, I'm wasting this person's time. They're not really interested in this discussion. They're giving me short answers. They're not providing all of the context. And hopefully they don't get so discouraged that they leave the organization. Hopefully there's the cultures in place where they can find another mentor to help connect with.
Now, there are organizations out there that don't have a formal mentorship program. Perhaps they don't even talk about it or encourage it or give it any attention at all. But there are new sales reps or up and coming sales reps that would love to work with a mentor. What advice do you have for someone in that position?
For someone in the position of they want to work with a mentor, but the formal process doesn't exist, I would say ask questions. You get to know who are the high performers inside the organization. Find out what they're interested in. See if you can find some common ground. If someone wants to come and talk to me about Jeeps or talk about the Jets or talk about barbecue, those are some things that I can certainly relate to and could be a good icebreaker for a discussion. And then as you make that transition from that icebreaker component of the discussion, then be open with your concerns. Be open with the areas that you may be vulnerable. Demonstrate that you don't know everything and that you know that you don't know everything, and start asking questions and ask them for their commitment. And then the next thing I would do is once you've created that engagement, you've gained commitment, then I would create some structure around it. So you don't want to abuse that interest that they have in helping you. So sending a 3-page email once a night or constantly sending Slack messages, asking about information that you readily have access to that might be documented in some kind of process is not a good way to build the relationship. Put some thought behind it and make sure that your questions, make sure that you're conscious of their time. You work within boundaries that you both agree to. Maybe it's, I've got 15 minutes on every Thursday, or I've got 30 minutes every other Thursday, or I've got 45 minutes one Thursday a month. And that becomes the time period where you interact with each other. So I would suggest that you work with the mentor on their terms. And what you might find out is there might be alignment both in personal interest, there might be alignment in interest in helping, but there might not be alignment in timing and in engagement. And if there's not alignment, move on. Just like you would any prospect that you're working with, go through that qualification process and determine fit and feasibility, do that test. And if things work out, move forward with a proposal and create that mentor-mentee relationship. And always remember, I think another thing, and it just kind of dawns on me as we're talking through this, remember that if you're in a position where you can help someone as a mentor, remember the path that you've walked, the journey and the pitfalls that you've run through, and take the perspective of trying to help someone avoid those pitfalls. As a mentee, know that you don't know everything. Know that you are going to gain some really interesting insight from the people that you work with, but remember downstream that you should give back. And when the next person comes into the organization, know how difficult it was for you to raise your hand and ask someone to help you as a mentor or help you with job shadowing, and offer to that new person some job shadowing.
Now, I shared a story about a mentor I had that had an impact on me. Mike, have you ever had a mentor in your sales career?
So many mentors, and it not just in sales. I mean, I would not be where I am today. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I would not be where I am today if it were not for the number of people that I've had a chance to work with and be around over my career. Whether you're talking about, so one person, Suzanne O'Brien, was someone I actually worked for and took on a role as a mentor. Yeah, the main thing I took away from her was the ability to manage a very high performing team and let people work in their own lanes and spread their wings and not get in the way of their individual success. Mike McCarg, another person that I had a chance to work with and was a mentor, helped me make that transition from an account consultant, client success type role into an account executive role. Chuck Schluter is a retired colonel, and his experience. One of the comments I've mentioned this before on the podcast: is, "Be bright, be brief, be gone." Is something that just has left such an important mark in my career. Another common phrase of his is that, or a common thing that he would mention is that, leaders provide guidance, direction, and motivation. This is a military guy, so you get his background, but so many different mentors. And I struggle, and heck, even working with Connor, both he and I work together in different capacity, where there's experience that I have been able to gain from working with him, and there's experience that he's been able to gain, I think, from working with me. All of these things, the common piece that they have is that each of those individuals were interested in giving back. They were interested in helping, and we were able to build up a relationship of trust. We were able to build up trust and commitment.
Well, Mike, as we wrap up here, do you have any final words about mentorship?
I'll just hit on it again. If you are out there and you're inside an organization, you're a tenured member of the sales team, you've been successful, share that success with new members of the team. You're successful because of the people around you, not because of one thing or another that you do on your own. You may write the best emails. You may deliver the best connect calls. You may put together some great proposals, but there's always a team behind you that's helping you out. Unless you're a sole proprietor, then maybe in that instance, you might, even there, you probably have a team of people that are behind you, whether it's family members. So as someone who is an expert in your field or someone who has demonstrated success, find opportunities, seek out those opportunities to give back, because it's through that engagement that you will help people perform, help people do things better, and help them minimize the number of false starts that hit people in their career. If you're new in your career and you're looking for a mentor, ask. Be very respectful of everybody's time. Know that everybody is busy. If someone doesn't respond to you, it's not an indictment of them. You have no idea what's going on in their life and in their world or where their attention is. Don't be rude, but continue to ask, and find new ways to deliver value to those people. And as you deliver value, as you make those connections, this is the early stage person as someone who wants to be mentored. As you find new ways to provide value, to others, those networks will expand, and you'll identify new mentors to work with. Think of the perspective that you have as someone who's just come out of school, and all the talk about millennials and how they like to interact with people and engage in the different generational issues and whatnot. And there is an experience that you can deliver to someone who has been in a career, for maybe even 5 years longer than you, where you can share new ideas around technology. You can share new ideas around concepts. You can share new ideas around interests. And when that mentor hears those things, they can apply that in the context of what they know and what's worked well for them. So take this from the perspective of the mentor will gain something from the mentee relationship, and the mentee will gain something from the mentor relationship. And that's what it is. It's a relationship.
Well, thank you so much, Mike. And thank you, Spencer, for sending in a question this week. If you have a question you would like Mike and Mike to answer on the Catalyst Sale podcast, just send it to hello@catalystsale.com. If you want to listen to past episodes of the show or find out what we're up to, you can find us at catalystsale.com or on Twitter @CatalystSale. Thank you for listening to the Catalyst Sale podcast.